like I'm a complete failure because I couldn't manage to pass this exam when other people have managed to pass it. And you feel like you aren't doing any good and you feel like you're useless.
Welcome back to our seventh episode of Vulnerability? I think it is. Yeah, it is. Welcome back, guys. We're stoked. We have a very, very special guest for you guys today. You guys are going to love her story. But firstly, I just wanted to jump in and say again that we're doing Vulnerability to share some vulnerable stories from Harriet and I and our special guests as well. And we're hoping that by sharing these stories, you guys will know that you're not alone in struggles that you might be facing at the time. And any struggle is best dealt with by talking about it. And that's just what we are trying to do here. We're trying to start conversations and make women and girls know and feel like they're not alone in anything that they're struggling with. So, Harriet, who have you got sitting next to you?
I'm very happy to be joined by Jacinta Wynne. Jacinta is a registered doctor at a hospital in Brisbane. She is on the anaesthetic training program to become a consultant anaesthetist. So she is a very intelligent lady. She also is a mother of a 2.5-year-old daughter called Darcy. And Jacinta is a mad keen swimmer and also loves paddling and going to the beach. So she pretty much froths JOLYN's. Speaking of, I noticed you're not in your hoodie, Lizzie.
I know the weather is finally starting to warm up down here, but I do have some cheeky JOLYN swimmers on underneath because I'll be going for a swim after this. Oh, you do as well.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us, Jacinta.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
And we're really excited to have you on because Jacinta has a really powerful story to tell. She and our questions that we have are planned because they will ask, we've decided to ask Jacinta some really targeted questions so that she can open up and share her story. I think it's something that a lot of us deal with in parts of our lives, and it's something that's not often spoken about.
Yeah, and I think everyone will definitely learn a lot from this and will be able to apply it, as you said, Harriet, to whatever they're struggling with at the time. But before the first question, we must always ask, what tea is everyone drinking today? I have 3 mint.
Oh, well, Jacinta brought me some tea.
Yes, we've just got a licorice and peppermint one, which tastes a lot better than it sounds. It's my favorite tea of all time.
It is delicious.
Yum. So
we're on point with our knowledge.
I'm a bit plain Jane over here, but oh well. Cheers.
Yeah.
Okay, Haz, why don't you start with the first question?
All right. So first question, Jacinta. It's a big one, and it is a challenging one, and it's not often spoken about. When is a time that you have experienced failure, and how hard was this for you?
Thanks for that one. So as part of training to become an anaesthetist, I've had to have done an undergraduate degree, which was nursing, a postgraduate degree in medicine, and then succeed through an interview process to get onto the anaesthetic training program. And then now being on the program is essentially like doing another degree while I work full time, in that you have to do 2 blocks of exams and about 5 years worth of time with a logbook that needs to be completed as well. So this exam is anecdotally thought to be the hardest medical exam in the country, if not in the world. And I'm now on my 4th attempt to try and pass this exam. So I've failed it 3 times now. And that's been very, very difficult as someone who traditionally in the past, if you work hard at your study or whatever your goal is, we're used to being rewarded for all that hard work. And this is a time in our lives where we are working really, really hard at something that we are not guaranteed to succeed at the first time or even second and third time.
So you failed 3 times, but you have passed and become a doctor previous to that, so it's a specialty.
Yes.
How hard is that to see that you have not passed and you've failed?
Yeah, so it's really, really difficult because usually we are used to progressing through our exams without this much difficulty. It's expensive. Every time I sit the exam, it costs approximately $5,000. So I need to budget to be able to go and attend the exam. And then the other thing that seems to be said about this exam is, and almost all specialist exams really, is that to sit the exam, they say it takes 1,000 hours of study. So as a mother with a husband that works more than full time, who's also supposed to be going to work and completing my logbook during this time, I've had to sacrifice a lot of things outside to be able to try and figure out where that 1,000 hours is going to fit in.
We're often told that we can have it all, but at what price is that? And you've just mentioned sacrifice, but what is your relationship with sacrifice in order to pursue your goals?
Yeah, sure. So prior to getting onto this program, on my days off, I was exercising 3 times a day. I was throwing my board on my car and going to the beach or the dam, and then going to bar class and doing triathlon training and seeing my friends just at the drop of a hat. Whereas now I exercise usually on average every second day. So I don't exercise on work days anymore. And I remember when I was talking to you about this originally, you were horrified. I can remember, because you said, but what do you mean you're not going every day? And I said, I can't go every day at the moment because this exam, this is the event that I have to prioritize in my life until it gets done.
I'll interject. It's because I know how much Jacinta loves exercise.
I do. Yeah. So it's hard because you have to put that on the back burner in order to get time to study. But it's also such a great outlet for stress that isn't available to me like it normally is, because you have to reprioritize that time. As far as family is concerned, my daughter's been in daycare since she was 5 months old, to facilitate me basically treating my days off as your job today is to study, and you don't do anything else. That's your job on your days off. And so she's been in daycare basically for her entire life, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I would rather she wasn't in full-time daycare. And that's something that can change once I've passed this exam.
Just a quick question. Sorry, how does it feel to have to make those sacrifices? So you're talking about all these incredible sacrifices that you have to make to achieve this goal, but what does it feel like knowing that you have to make these sacrifices in order to achieve your goal?
Yeah, so I feel extremely guilty about having to say no to a lot of special events. I feel guilty about my daughter being in daycare as much as she is. And then I feel like I'm a complete failure because I couldn't manage to pass this exam when other people have managed to pass it. And you feel like you aren't doing any good, and you feel like you're useless in all aspects of my life. I feel like I don't deserve to be on this training program, which is rubbish. And we will talk about examining evidence when I come to talk to you about my coping strategies. But I went through a time where I felt completely worthless and useless in every single aspect of my life.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because I see Jacinta as a highly successful, capable woman who is always positive and able to talk about how it is. But for her to be able to open up about that, I think is really valuable. And a lot of us have experienced failure, whether it's, not winning a race that we wanted to win, putting so much effort into something and not achieving it, or whether that's study or anything that you're going through in life. I think that they're really valuable lessons.
Because you never look at someone and think, oh, they're a failure, or they're feeling like that. It's all something that we all feel individually, I guess, and don't share. So yes, thank you so much for expressing how hard that feeling is. And I'm sure all the girls here have experienced that to some degree, but it's good because that brings us to a more positive question, which is, so you've experienced this deep failure, which is obviously gut-wrenching, and you've had to deal with it 3 times now, but you're obviously so resilient because you're going again for the 4th time, which I just find incredible. How do you deal with these failures? How do you bring yourself back up after experiencing these feelings?
Yeah, so the first couple of times I didn't expect to pass. I just had a really great study group and just really tried to like draft off them. They were amazing. They were well ahead of where I was in my preparation. And so it was easy to bounce back from those ones because I didn't really expect to pass, but any resemblance of old athlete in me couldn't stomach the idea of not trying and not showing up and giving it a go, even though it was a very expensive exercise in all incantations of the word. The third time, I really thought I had passed and I failed by a number of points. And that happened in the beginning of this year.
So close.
Yeah, like just a couple of points. I was close. And I was completely devastated. It took me a lot longer to bounce back from this previous sitting because I honestly thought that I had passed and that my preparation was better this time, or that time, I should say. And so it took me a lot longer to get the motivation to even sit in front of a textbook. My colleagues and my friends, my dear friends who had passed that sitting, and I was very jealous of them. I couldn't understand why me and not them. And that was very difficult to understand. I couldn't understand why this was happening to me when I honestly thought I'd worked as hard as I possibly could have.
Jealousy is really hard to deal with as well. And I think that's also something that isn't often spoken about because it's not necessarily known as like a nice trait, but it is real, especially when you try so hard for something and it's something that you want. Were there any other techniques that you used or like day-to-day rituals that got you back up to study, or how did you actually sit down and apply yourself every day to focus on something when you don't know whether you'll pass or fail?
Yeah. Yes. So this comes back to the idea of looking at the evidence. So every time I've sat this exam, my mark has improved. And the second time that I sat, it was after having had a stillbirth. So I was in a terrible state of mind to even bother to show up. But even though I did show up to see if my mark was getting better, I was able to produce evidence that saw that things were getting better and better and better. This time round, if the evidence goes in the same direction, which there's no reason why it shouldn't, I will get through on this attempt because I don't have anything going on in my personal life that's anywhere near as difficult as that. And so it would be foolish not to take this opportunity to try again because the evidence suggests that this will be successful because I've done the work and my marks keep improving every time I show up.
So on that, is that what motivates you every day to sit down?
That does. The fact that I want to succeed for my family. I want to be able to provide a good example for my daughter. I want to be able to provide a good example for my friends as someone that does hard work and then gets where I want to be from it. And also, it's a really great job. I love my job. I don't want to not do this job. And for us to progress, I must pass this exam. There's no two ways about it.
Well, I can tell you now.
But it's still difficult.
Sitting here listening to your story, I am so inspired by your determination to achieve this and your relentlessness in not giving up. Especially, I didn't know about your stillbirth in the second one, and I'm so sorry to hear that. But that in itself could be a whole nother story because the fact of dealing with that and getting over that is amazing. You're an incredible woman, and I'm just so amazed by all the effort that you're putting into this. I think it's amazing.
Thank you. It's not to say that it's not easy every day. There are days when I get up and I just don't want to do it. But other examples of things that have been helpful have been having study groups or a study partner so that you can keep yourself accountable. And then another thing I struggle with quite a lot is comparing myself to other people, even though it's the worst habit ever because you never know what's going on with everybody else. So things like a social media holiday or a Strava holiday. I took a holiday from Instagram for the months leading up to this attempt because it can sink a lot of your time, but also I can't go to training twice a day. So it's stupid to be getting upset that other people are swimming faster than me or running faster than me. Take a holiday from that and that can come back once the exam's over.
I think that's a really valuable lesson of that we can't do it all at the one time. And even though you've got goals in multiple things, for your main goal of passing that exam, that something's got to give.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my
it'll be there
gosh.
when the exam's over. It'll come back.
Absolutely.
I'm so amazed by this story. I think it's so
I told you
fantastic.
it was amazing.
I'm blown away, honestly.
And I feel like we could ask Jacinta so many more questions and sit down with her and learn so many valuable lessons, but we've already learned so much from her today. And I think that this is just a really incredible story of not giving up. I think sometimes when things get hard, and even when other people tell us, oh, maybe it's time to give up, or maybe you should pursue something else, when you really want something, you just got to get after it. And it's still a journey. You're on that track at the moment, and she's still going, yet she's still willing to be able to share her feelings and being vulnerable with us today.
Yeah, it's amazing. And just the following your passions and committing to that, I think a lot of the followers on JOLYN can relate to that, like having a goal that they want so bad and might not know how to commit to it. So Jacinta, you've definitely shown us how to do that. So thank you so much.
Of course, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Yeah, enjoy your tea, guys.
Bye.
Bye.